Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Super excited to have so many people on this call. I'm Marc, one of the co-founders of Langfuse. Historically, we've ran these town halls with the community every once in a while to basically give updates on the project, like what's new, releases, and yeah, this is the latest installment of this town hall. So expect like 30 to 40 minutes of programming. Okay, high level agenda is we'll do a quick introduction again of Langfuse for people who are new to the project, super brief. Then a quick look back on where we stand, growth of the project, team. Then, I mean, there's big news this year that we joined ClickHouse. I'll dive deeper on why we joined ClickHouse and why this is exciting for the project and its outlook. Then there will be an update on Langfuse version 4. So this is the upcoming major version that is specifically interesting for everyone who is self-hosting Langfuse. Then we'll do a quick release recap that we did in all of the previous town halls as well, where we'll iterate through everything that's new that we've released over the last month. So if you followed the project for quite a while, then this is a great place to catch up on what's new. And then quickly touch on roadmap, and then Q&A, feedback, wish list, whatever you find interesting. In general, this is a live meeting, so it's great, but a lot of like the ideas and questions are async. You can always visit langfuse.com/ideas to like contribute to the roadmap via GitHub discussions, and the same if you have questions. You can always reach us via the GitHub discussion support or via the in-app support if you use Langfuse Cloud. Generally, where we stand, I'm super excited because when we started the project early in 2023, it was just Max Clemens and I, when building agents ourselves, realizing there's a need for something that helps us build successful agents, because agents were exciting, but most of them didn't work. And now, over the years, the project has grown quite a bit. Now we are a team of 20 maintainers working on the project in different capacities. And yeah, I feel very lucky to be able to work with these people. And on the right side, we see a couple of metrics. So like, for example, 19 of the Fortune 50 use Langfuse. And we see like now last month, over 70 million SDK installs. So like wild metrics, like if you push a change that so many people adopt it, that's super cool. And yeah, generally just very excited about the growth of the project and where it is. But I mean, this is because it's like a continuous discovery of how the space is developing. Like it's really driven by your feedback, because we need to keep up with where the space is headed. High level, we still do very similar things to what we did over the last year. Basically, observability, prompt management, evaluation, and all of this on like a very scalable and open data platform. I'd say like a couple of new things where it's about like agents then using this platform that we'll see in the latest releases. And especially the evaluation like section got much deeper over the last quarter. So yeah, you'll see that in the demos. So the biggest release that I'll comment on from my side is that we joined ClickHouse in January. Generally here, the thing is that we've grown so much since we started Langfuse that end of last year, we we're at the position where we had like great offers for like large Series A's to basically fund, like venture fund, the build out of Langfuse. Generally, I mean, I think we threaded the needle quite well of having an open source project that is fully scalable, runs the same infrastructure. So it's not like demoware, but it's actually like you can depend on it in production, but also for those that want either a managed cloud product or that want like enterprise grade support or other deployment options like BYOC, that we support them commercially. And since we've grown so much, this was sufficient in order to fund the project. There was nothing that we needed to limit deeply in the open source project, which I really like. However, then looking at the future of the project, basically we had the option of staying independent and raising a larger like Series A financing round. And we also got to know the co-founders, co-contributors of ClickHouse, because we like built on ClickHouse in, I think I'll get to it in another slide, since the beginning of 2024, because we outgrew Postgres as a data store. And we're collaborating with the maintainer team quite a bit already, and realized that being part of ClickHouse could like yield many benefits for the Langfuse project. You can visit the blog where we announced it, but my high-level summary would be Langfuse generally in this space is the most widely adopted project, is almost fully open source. Like there are a couple of like enterprise platform features that are on an enterprise license, but almost everything is open source, which is very important to me. We are very much enterprise grade, but a couple of things we're interested in being part of ClickHouse compared to being an independent company. We see other projects in the space building their own data stores in order to optimize for their workflow, because the like Langfuse as a project is a database driven problem. It's like such a scalability problem, and we need to be able to then also make changes in the data store to optimize it further for the use case. Other projects in the space decided to like venture out, build their own data stores. I wasn't that excited about it, and like the core maintainer team wasn't that excited about it, because that means that you need to adopt a new data store that hasn't existed before, and also like by being part of ClickHouse and continue to use ClickHouse, we I'd say we inherit all of the performance improvements that ClickHouse gets anyway, and it's like a very large active maintainer team. So that's the main point here. Then as we grew not only in open source but also commercially over the last years, we can now meet customers where they are with like a global footprint. It's not just like a core maintainer team that is distributed and answers to you like via GitHub discussions or in-app chat, but also if you're like a large-scale enterprise in different regions, we can now support you where you are with like local market knowledge, and we gain further deployment flexibility, because if, for example, fully self-hosted or fully cloud is not what you need, we can now meet you like on the spectrum between the two. For example, like quite some deployments I now see using ClickHouse BOC, where all of the data is in your own data plane, but then like more management of it can be on a cloud level. Yes, that's on basically joining ClickHouse. Since we joined ClickHouse, we've grown the maintainer team. I think we almost doubled. Yeah, we doubled it from 10 to 20 people, and we'll continue to double it until end of year, because we see so much value that we can create for the community by continuing to invest into the platform. And yeah, we stay fairly independent as a product group. All of the core team members are still on. And yeah, we're very excited to build the leading project in the space. If you have any questions regarding this, like feel free to use the Q&A to like ask anything you're interested in, because generally this should be very, very good news for the community that we are now extremely well funded and invest into the core engineering team behind the Langfuse project. Then switching gears, I mean, I talked about that we scaled a lot over the years. This is like this chart is like how we've grown on like an events level, and these are like the things that we did in order to like make the platform more scalable. So when we started the project, it was all like a single application container running on Postgres. At some point, we added queuing to the ingestion, and then we switched to ClickHouse. And now within ClickHouse, we made quite some performance improvements in order to keep up with the load and really make Langfuse fast along the different use case patterns. And now there is a Langfuse version 4, which is mostly a backend change. So like a full rewrite of many of the like core application paths regarding like how we write data, how we then consume it in the application. And what's happening under the hood is that we change from a data schema that has basically traces and these observations as separate entities that needs to be joined. And we merge all of this into like a single large like observation events table. And also we remove mutability, because some legacy SDKs that, I mean, Max and I put out an SDK, I think like in a week when you initially started the project in 2023. And we thought it would be cool if LM calls update themselves when they are streaming, or that we log something when the LM call starts and then we log something when it ends. However, like once you ingest like petabytes of data, that doesn't really scale, because then you need to observe so much data in the database. So by moving to OpenTelemetry, generally we only receive immutable events, and now we completely re-architect the data schema to assume immutability, which thereby makes like querying much cheaper and much faster. How does it impact you? On cloud, it shouldn't really impact you on like an infra side, because I mean, we handle all of this for you, and currently we dual check the two schemas and have already demoed it for quite a while and tried it. So by now it feels fairly battle tested. However, there are some legacy capabilities that might require migration at some point, but we'll email you in case like project is affected. So if you've been with us for a very long time, we use some capabilities that we might need to migrate. then we'll contact you. But all of the core application features should feel fairly similar. I think the biggest change is that the core tracing table switches to like an observation-centric view, because thereby you can filter for different sub-agents in a more flexible way, where you're not constrained to having this like one concept of a trace. But if you have like 3 sub-agents, then you can have a table that shows you all of these agents. That's kind of like the idea. Happy to answer more about this in the Q&A. And then on self-hosted, this is a major version. However, this does not change infrastructure components. That mostly changes the schema that we use to store the data in ClickHouse. There's a preview available now. Stefan will comment on it in a second. But a stable migration path, if you currently deploy Langfuse version 3 at scale, will become available over the next weeks. But we'll comment more on potential timelines. Important here, all of the scalability advancements that we already tested on cloud will be available in open source as well. Like generally, we have as a team not the intention to hold back features or delay them in self-hosting, but rather we see our cloud product as like a way to better test and like dogfood them ourselves before distributing them wildly to thousands of self-hosted deployments. Because once it's like in self-hosting, we want it to be extremely stable, reliable, that you just need to update, follow the guide, and it just works. Where on cloud, like Stefan, for example, can babysit like a change, roll something back if something doesn't work, or improve something based on memory profiles or observability. So that's why we usually test in cloud and then roll out to self-hosted. Yes, over to you, Stefan, because there's like now a way to test version 4 if you are eager.
Correct. Thank you so much, Marc. This morning, earlier today, we published a guide on how you can self-host V4 yourself. Main idea here is that the hard part about going to V4 and the hard part for us is still making sure that the data migrations babysit themselves instead of our self-hosters having to do that. For anyone coming new onto Langfuse, that's a non-issue. And that's why we put this out today, where you can start on the V4 schema. That's exactly what we run in cloud. You get the latest and greatest features of ClickHouse, including full text search and other capabilities that we'll highlight later in the call. So anyone who starts fresh can opt in to the V4 behavior by following the steps in that guide. Please go ahead and try today if you're curious. You can do that in your own Docker Compose setup. You can do that in a fresh Kubernetes deployment. Let us know any feedback that you have, and we're super excited to finally get this into the community hands.
Awesome. Thank you, Stefan. This was like a huge change, as whenever we make changes that are affecting infra or how we store data, making them available in like a scalable way for everyone self-hosting is very important for us, that it's kind of as convenient as possible. So if you have any questions or feedback regarding how version 4 works or how to deploy it, or if something seems, I mean, like illogical, inconvenient, I don't know, if you have any doubts, feel free to add them to this discussion thread, and we are happy to take them and make sure that, one, this is ironed out, and two, that then once we release this as like a stable version and make this the main version, that we have like a very paved migration path that answers all of these questions. Awesome. Then next up, we'll do, I think, my personal favorite part of these town halls, a quick demo of everything that's new. So I'll start with, wait, I'll need to change what I share here in the call. So since I think 2 months ago, Langfuse is now available in a Japan data region. So if you have data regionality constraints, you can host us in Japan now. And then for my other demos, I'll quickly log back in again. Where second, we now on traces offer inline comments. So in JSON beta view, you can highlight text and comment inline. And then basically on the in the text, you see a highlight and the comment. Thereby, many teams that like review data and label it have like comments to specific sections of an LLM log. Thereby, you like this is much easier. And then the second use case is corrections, which goes into the similar direction of like annotation and labeling. So if you feel like the output isn't good, you can click into correct, say, I don't know, I didn't want all of these bullets, and then Langfuse stores this correction alongside the trace. This is usually helpful for everyone who's labeling a lot of data, or where, for example, you produce the suggestion in app and then a customer, like as a user of an application, would correct it anyway. So you can store these corrections alongside the prod traces. And now back to the list of other releases, because next up is Hasib with his changes to Elm as a judge.
Awesome. Thank you, Marc. What I would love to share is that we have shipped observation level evals, which means that within your trace tree, you can now select any of your observations to be evaluated. This is great because like now you can have a lot more granular and targeted scope of what you want to have evaluated, what observation. And secondly, we have also swapped out the underlying infrastructure of evals that have been previously less performant and relied on a delay. And you will now get almost real-time evaluations on your observations. So in this case that we see right here, we have the AI stream text observation that is part of our demo application. And you see that a bunch of observation level scores have been already automatically added. For example, the is cursing LLM as a judge evaluator has run and has found that the user was not cursing in this case. People who are already familiar with our feature will know like, this is something that is new as well. The LLM as a judge evaluators previously were only able to create numeric scores, but what we have also shipped is the ability for an LLM as a judge evaluator to return categorical or Boolean scores as well, which are super helpful for classification tasks. If you have any questions or any interest in that, feel free to dive into our docs here and leave comments on GitHub discussions. I will now hand over to Toby for further improvements for evals at Langfuse.
Awesome. Tobias, are you on? Yes.
I'm on. You can see the screen, right? Awesome. So yeah, LLM as a judges are usually great to evaluate things like is my agent hallucinating or concise? But this is a pretty big gun for some things, right? Sometimes you just want to check the output format of all requirements are passed in, and this is much better done in code. So this is why we 2 weeks ago added code evaluators that allow you to write little evaluator snippets using TypeScript or Python. How does this look like? This is fairly intuitive. You have this function, the evaluate function. Langfuse passes the context in, and then you can do whatever you want in the code to evaluate that observation. So in my case, I'm just checking if cat was actually in the input observation and then return a score on that. These evaluators are then run on any incoming observations. Langfuse runs it for you, so you don't need to handle any infrastructure. It's all done automatically, as you can, for example, in my case, see here. You can also view the execution and can then, for example, also jump into the trace and debug this to actually see what's going on, how did the evaluator work. This gives you really great transparency to debug also any issues with that. The other feature that I want to show is the Langfuse experiment action. So evaluators are in general great to detect any drift or any issues in your production deployment. But what you also want to do is actually avoid that any issues even manage it to production, right? And what we usually have in software engineering is a huge test suite that's run upon every pull request or release. And we want to encourage similar best practices with our GitHub action here. So how does it work? So our GitHub action, you can just use in any GitHub workflow. For example, in this case, I'm running this on a pull request or upon a release. You can check out your code, or install any dependencies that you might need actually, and then you run the Langfuse GitHub action. Just point it to your Langfuse account, mention what dataset it actually should use, and then point it to the script that you want to run to evaluate the dataset. All the plumbing, pulling down the dataset, writing the scores back to Langfuse is all done by the action. So you don't need to bother with that. You can simply focus on your experiment script, slightly similar actually to our code evaluator that we just saw. You have the signature here, the experiment signature, handling you in the handler, and then you can just run your experiment, passing an evaluator or run evaluator. Once the experiment is run, it will actually comment on your PR, giving you visibility on how your agent is actually doing, whether it passes your thresholds. You can really dive here into the details, looking at every score, looking at every item, or also if you want, just jump into your Langfuse account and see it there. You also have the test or the path back here, jumping into the job that was running that or the GitHub pull request that was creating this. Back to you, Marc.
Awesome. Thank you, Toby. Generally, I mean, this is the whole theme of us investing heavily into experiments in Langfuse. Marlies has a couple of other releases regarding this, but Toby really nailed the kind of like code-based evals and like experimentation in CI/CD. Marlies?
Cool, thank you. I'll take over presenting. So I would like to talk a little bit more about experiments. So Toby mentioned what they are. They can be many things, mostly they're regression tests. It is a run of a data set against your LLM application. And then optionally, you can also apply evaluation methods to understand what exactly is happening. So what's new? Most importantly, we recommend running your experiments with the experiment SDK, which I have listed here. There are two core options where you can manage your data. You can either manage your data locally, that's the easiest example. So kind of just define it in your script, run it, and get the data into the platform immediately and see and understand how the flow works. The second option that you have is to manage your data sets within Langfuse. That comes with a couple of nice features like versioning. Once you have your dataset versioned, this also implies that you can run experiments on previous versions of datasets to reproduce certain results, understand regressions, and dive deeper into specific issues. Both will ingest automatically into Langfuse, and you will be greeted with our experiment screens. These show you the surface that you have to analyze your results from your individual experiments. So you can see a list view, you can filter this down, you can dig into things, you can understand based on specific scoring or other metadata keys, what is actually changing, what is relevant to you. You can also see some graphs where per default we show cost, latency, and scoring, most importantly, which is usually what you use to assess how your experiment is developing over time. And then you can dig into specific results, for example, like the one that Toby showed before. We also doubled down on the capabilities to add these dashboards and widgets. So if you are happy to customize them as well, you can actually come to the customization and set up with your personal widget configuration what you want to be looking at. So for example, in this case, I would be interested to understand a little bit more of the cost and break that down by, in this case, experiment name, and then look at the individual costs for the individual observations, understand this, and I can play around with this to specifically cater to my own needs and get the view that I'm most interested in. Save this and use this fully integrated in Langfuse custom dashboards. So that's really helpful. We understand that experiments can sometimes have like a bit of a complexity to approach. So we also doubled down on adding skills specifically for experiments and things like calibration and understanding how to best utilize the feature for all of your evaluation workflows. Yes. I'm sure Lotte will tell you about this, so I'll hand over to.
Yes, I know. A quick jump in here. As you see, the dashboard here is based on the observation view. This is one thing that's like a core attribute of Langfuse version 4. This parts of what Marlies just showed. So experiments running without data sets, so like with their own custom data. And now plotting the data is currently only available on cloud, but will roll out with Langfuse version 4 if you're self-hosting as well, as this is based on the new data model. Thank you, Marlies. And over to Lotte for everything skill related.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Marlies already touched on it very briefly. We added skills. Can you see my screen, by the way? Yes.
Yes.
Great. We noticed, the tool is there, Langfuse can do a lot, but often people and also coding agents can benefit from more context or more best practices. And so we see people using coding agents more and more to interact with Langfuse and also implement Langfuse, and that's why we created the agent skill. And you'll see it through our docs, so we have a page on it, but also if you now go to our Get Started guides, you'll also see we actually promote using the skill for implementing all these features. So the quality difference between an agent with a skill versus without is actually pretty big. So here you see, for example, a trace from an implementation without our skill, and here is a trace with. So definitely would recommend. Next to just implementation that's getting better, it's also, we thought it to really work with our CLI, our API. And so you can also interact with Langfuse via your agents. And there is a small screen recording that we posted a long time ago. And here there's, the context here is there was a lot of negative user feedback on some traces. Can the agent actually look into what's going wrong and why and summarize it? So it works pretty well. So definitely would recommend checking it out. There are a lot of cool things you can do with this. So that's on the skill. And so we see there's a lot of value in teaching best practices, both for agents, but also for humans. And there was also already a question on more guidance. And so one of the things we are doing for that is we published the Langfuse Academy. And here you will find a collection of what we think are best practices, how to set up certain processes, what are the trade-offs, based on what we have seen with teams that we are working with. And also what we think is probably the right way to do it, based on just us being in this industry for a long time. So definitely also check it out. So we are investing in multiple things to guide you guys, and another one is a workshop, and for that I would hand over to Annabelle.
Perfect. I am sharing my screen. Because after Lotte and I worked on the academy and we fleshed out these concepts and how to think about the AI engineering loop, we were like, okay, let's now bring this into a very concrete example of how people can set up their application and then also run through the whole engineering loop, leveraging Langfuse. And this is what we built the workshop now for, and it's available on our website, and you can walk through it on your own. And it's in the end a 8-session based walkthrough of all the features based on a very concrete example. In this case, we use the dead support agent, so a little agent that is answering all kind of tech support questions. And we're walking through each step in this AI engineering loop and how you can trace, how you can find interesting signals from production, how you then also can set up a first data set, experiment with it, and evaluate it. And it's structured in a way that it's based on a GitHub repository. Also switching over here quickly that you can clone, and each of the lessons has a different checkout point. So whenever you're, for example, only interested in running an experiment and want to learn how to do this, or also maybe just set up some production monitors, you can check out the respective checkpoint and then only take this lesson and take it from there. And this is also available for you to run through, and we also have an instructor mode. So in case you want to run it with your colleagues, you can also do this and guide them through it. Also, we are actually running it at quite some conferences this year, so maybe you can also join us there. So much on the workshop, and I'm handing it back to Marc.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot and Annabelle undersold it quite a bit. Generally, the Academy, I have shared with so many people, like one-on-one. I think it's a great way to learn how to build great AI applications and agents, because it's very different from traditional software. And if you, your team, or other teams you work with have questions or seem to be confused, I think directing them in this direction. And then the workshop, if you're new to Langfuse or you might have only used tracing or might have only used prompt management in the past, then the workshop is like a very nice and easy way to test things out. Valerie, are you on to cover like the new and fast APIs you built?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Let me take over the screen. So as part of wait. So as part of V4 push, we introduced a number of new APIs. there is now a new metrics API that allows to aggregate over very large swaths of data. Like this is now aggregating half a year of data in sub-second intervals. It's like running under 500 milliseconds. There is now observations v2, which allows you to stream data from observations table, and it's a lot more selective in what it will be streaming, but you can get all the same data you were able to get out of older observations API, but now it's sort of more requires you to specify what exactly you want and streams just that. And this is where we there is also a new scores API that Nicholas released just last week, I believe. And with observations API, we can also transition into full text search capabilities, because now they've been added to both observations API and our UI. We're working together with ClickHouse to expand full text search capabilities of Langfuse. So for instance, now there is a new matches operator that works on input, output, and metadata columns. So we can search for even really large text output columns and get results. I mean, this has run in 3 seconds. We're still working on caching, getting caching better. So matches operator sometimes can return in some seconds. Sometimes it will return in faster than in a second. Let's see if I can hit a warm replica. Yeah, well, not really. But anyway, this is like looking through half a month of data for a single trace that has this data. So it's still faster than it would have been otherwise. It is also supported on metadata keys and values. So matches would search for entire string. It's kind of similar to contains, but it would not match in certain cases, but it's usually faster than contains. As you can see, this returned in under a second. Contains also benefits from some of it. So you can also just keep using contains, but it will not be as fast. Yeah, that's full text search on API. It is also now supported on the web UI. So if you navigate to the tracing view and full text for something, yeah, it's not going. Okay, apparently I'm hitting cold cache again, sadly.
Okay, this is currently like something Valerie is still actively also working on, because this is like quite recent capabilities of ClickHouse as well, and we work deeply with like the underlying database team. So generally, making search really fast over large lookbacks is something that we are actively working on. Perfect. Over to me, because I'll walk you through a couple of more releases by maintainers that can't be on. So we have quite some additions to our Langfuse MCP server, where now when we, for example, check out the MCP reference, basically almost everything that you can do via the API or in product is now available via the MCP server as well. If you don't want to use the MCP server, there's also the Langfuse CLI that wraps our public API. Both are great ways to then, together with the Langfuse skill, make all of this available to agents. And agents is a great point to mention, because now we have a new capability in Langfuse to launch feature previews. And there is, when we go in here, feature preview, we can enable the in-app Langfuse assistant, which is basically a packaging of our MCP server and our skills that we have to make like Langfuse data more interactive, and we'll launch way more capabilities on this assistant over the next week. So this is very much like a beta. That's why you need to like elect yourself that you want to try it. It'll get much better. If you have any feedback, please let us know. But for example, we can ask, I don't know, find programmatic traces in Langfuse, and it'll basically continue to loop over the production data that we have in this this project to give me suggestions. If you spot anything that works particularly well or not well, feel free to thumbs up, thumbs down. Currently, this is a like pre-release experimental alpha, I'd say, that we run on Langfuse.only, but this will be available self-hosted pretty soon as well. And we'll probably roll out to more of like a production scale GA also soon. So there's like a big effort of the team to make it easier to like dive deep into lots and lots of data and get a sense for what you can improve. Yes, very excited to get this into your hands. If you have any feedback, here also in the feature preview, we link to the feedback thread. So yeah, this is where Ben launched it. Try it out and let us know what you think. And now for the, I think, final step, over to you, Marc, on alerting.
Thanks, Marc. Let me share my screen. So today we're announcing a new monitoring feature and alerting feature that can help you catch issues before they impact your users and get notified when cost, quality, latency, or other key metrics move outside of expected ranges. So when you log into Langfuse in the cloud, you'll see a new monitors tab here. And this monitors tab will show you all the active monitors and what their current alerting severity is. And they'll let you set them up and configure them. So I'm going to go through an example. So we have all of these scores coming into the Langfuse demo project. And my favorite score, I don't know, let me see if I can make this a bit bigger so I can show you guys, is cursing. So here is a filter for all of our evals around whether or not somebody's cursing with the Langfuse QA chatbot. And you can see that there's a bunch of scores that are kind of pouring in. It's a Boolean value. So I can go back to my monitors tab and I can create a new monitor that looks at numeric scores, the value, and we can just take the max value. So it'll be either 0 or 1, and we can add a filter for if the score name is cursing. And this was me testing it, so I did curse once. Please don't curse in the Langfuse demo chatbot. So if the score is above 0, then we want to receive a notification, and we're going to say someone is cursing. And maybe we want to add some tags. So this is happening in production, and maybe we also want to add a tag for the QA chatbot, so we know what this affects. The tags let us filter on the main page later. And then you can select an automation channel or create a new one. So we already have our Slack connected here with production monitors, but you can also create a custom webhook or a GitHub dispatch. And both of these will receive all of the filter parameters that you use to create the monitor. So if you wanted to, you could run some automated workflow that searches, sends this over to one of the APIs that were demoed earlier and fetch batches of data that were flagged this way. And then we hit create. And probably in like a minute or two, this new monitor will evaluate, hopefully is okay. Yeah, okay, good. So no one's cursing right now. Good. So just to recap, monitors let you catch cost and quality issues before they impact your users. They work with observations, numeric scores, and categorical scores. We're launching with the standard automation channels that already work with prompts. So that's Slack, webhooks, and GitHub dispatch. And they're available today on Langfuse Cloud. That's it from me. Back to you, Marc.
Thank you. Again, currently on as like a beta on the cloud product, but we'll roll out self-hosted very soon. As said, it's great to yes. Thank you, Marc, for not cursing on this call. But yeah, we'll roll out self-hosted very soon. Then one thing. So this is it for the demos. Thank you all for presenting. And I will quickly dive into what's coming next. all of this is public, so you can always, if you are curious of what's next, check out langfuse.com/roadmap. Generally, right now we are diving further into like agent observability and how we like then view the data effectively. I mentioned at the top of the call that with Langfuse version 4, we moved to this observation span-centric way of rendering data, which then helps to render sub-agents more effectively. So not everything is a trace or a run, but you can like save custom views in the way that you like. I mean, save views have been around for a long time in Langfuse, but now they're like one of the primary ways of consuming the data. And we improve a lot of the like interfaces to work better with long-running agents and improving our full-text search across all interfaces. On the eval sides, now we forgot to mention that all of the configuration of, for example, now LLM as a judge is also now updatable via the API. So if you want to sync these evaluators, you can do that. We like tremendously changed the data model already to support these new evaluator types, but we'll continue to invest into like charting, how the UI works, and expanding the platform level evaluators to more surfaces. Workflow automation, basically alerts and the prompt notifications were the first step in this direction. We're currently looking deeper into triggering workflows across the platform. So for example, automatically adding traces to an annotation queue, or how to automate generally your work on a platform level. And then quite a lot of this, I mean, I think the roadmap is constantly moving. Quite a lot of this has already been shipped to some part of Skills, Guides, Academy, but this is all like a starting point, so we'll dive deeper there. CLI and MCP surfaces will improve quite a bit. And I think one thing that regarding like agency is interesting, our first part was ship MCP server and ship skills. The second now was bring this into the app with an in-app agent. Generally with the agent, currently it's a view-only agent. Over the next weeks, it will be able to mutate data in platform. Then it will be able to do more complex tasks, as for example, create a synthetic data set. And then we want to be able for the in-app agent to be more of like an ambient agent to just do things like you about changes, like make suggestions of what you should be able to change on application to make the agent more successful. So as you will see us invest a lot into this in-app agent to just take a lot of load off of you and your team and automate a lot of these things for you. So this is, I think, one of the like biggest initiatives for Langfuse. Then platform scalability. You saw the chart. So whenever we think we grow a lot, then when you look back at the year, like a year later, it looks like almost no data because like the community, generally these agent use cases grow tremendously. So this is where we invest a lot. And one thing that's interesting here is, I mean, this kind of like is important for interactively using data and writing a lot of data, but as we see more and more agents then consuming the data in Langfuse to optimize other agents, this kind of like speed of like the API speed and performance increasingly matters a whole lot. Alerts, we already touched on it. I think one thing that's really interesting here is like more of these enterprise features as more narrow API key scoping. I already saw it in the Q&A is coming, and more detailed RBAC. This is something that we prioritize over the like I think it's the next quarter, like roughly timeline. And then we also continue to invest into like a self-hosted experience. Generally, if you have feedback on the self-hosted documentation or you think anything is too complicated, let us know, because generally it should be just a template and following a simple guide, and then you should have a production cluster of Langfuse running. One thing that will come over the next, over the very soon time is like that we'll change the ClickHouse operator for the ClickHouse dependency, as this will give us much more stability than the Helm chart that we use today. And then we'll dive deeper into multimodality across all the other production surfaces. So we'll start with, I mean, multimodal tracing has been around for a long while, and we'll add it to Langfuse datasets as well next, and then we'll look into the other surfaces, such as the playground, as I think that's what came up in the chat. Generally, one sentence on vision direction. I mean, everybody is talking about automatically looping on agents and have agents optimize other agents. We believe that there's currently still quite a lot of taste needed in order to build great applications. And I would recommend this post by Lotte of how AI is eating the AI engineering loop. and where we see basically, I think this is a great chart where we are coming from manual AI engineering, like using Langfuse, like high time invest, quite decent quality. And then there's the way of fully engineering agents by using other agents where low time invest, but also the quality isn't that high because you need some kind of like judgment on how agents should perform. And yeah, we want to strike that ideal balance with Langfuse. So looping you in whenever like Langfuse needs advice or judgment, but then taking off like many of the other things off of your shoulders. So I don't know, like calibrating an as a judge or like coming up with prompt experiment versions, like these things our in-app agents should be doing over time. So you don't need to do this yourself. Nice. This is generally just roadmap vision. If you have questions, let me know. Thanks again for all of your support. Generally, the best way to support the project is contribute to GitHub discussions, raise issues there, feedback on any bugs that you see. This is the best way how to support the project. And if you want to like contribute full time, I'm very excited that we have such good backing and can afford to grow the core contributor team. So almost no matter of how you see that you could add to the project, we probably have a role for you if you're like an exceptional individual that could fit in. Feel free to reach out. Check out langfuse.com/join us, where we highlight all of these things. So lots of open roles across different dimensions. And this is the your friendly neighborhood maintainer team of Langfuse. So let's move over to my favorite part of these town halls, Q&A. I have quite some time to stay a little bit longer in case where there's more questions than we have time for. Otherwise, we can also end on the hour. But I'll just open the Q&A. If more questions came up, let me know. Let's start with Ravi's questions regarding whether he's asking for whether we could run like a more hands-on workshop that walks him and probably his team through all things Langfuse implementation, reference architectures, production deployments. Yes, generally the Langfuse workshop that Annabelle mentioned is, I'd say, our self-serve way of how to do this. So let me quickly screenshot this again. Like if you want to check it out by yourself, this is, I think, how you can explore all of this. But if you're a company and you want to engage more deeply with us, yes, you can also reach out to Langfuse, where you, for example, click Get Demo. You can request talking to a human, just fill out the form, and a Langfuse expert will get back to you. Yeah, happy to talk more deeply about the use case. But generally, yeah, I'd say how we architect Langfuse is that everything that there is to be learned on calls, there should also be open source and available on our documentation page. So we have a lot here, but if you want like a more tailored workshop for your team, we also have experts that can do this on a sync call. Let me switch back to this. Perfect. And Ravi, did this answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Then Manosh asked that Langfuse currently supports multimodal tracing with the main application, but the playground doesn't yet support uploading and attaching media files for prompt testing. Is media support for the playground on the roadmap? If so, is then estimated timeline for the release? I'd say Tobias, probably who's on the call, can comment on like an estimated timeline for data sets, but I'd expect this to land over the next couple of weeks. On Playground, this is something that's on the back burner on multimodality. We currently focus on these data set experiment capabilities, and then we'll probably get to the Playground. If you have more details on this of how you'd use it, please add it on GitHub discussions. We would love to get more insights into how you use the Playground, how you would like to use it. But I mean, the use case is pretty simple. It's like you have a multimodal application, you want to like change a prompt and see what it does in the Playground. So yeah, we are aware. We are growing the team, and yeah, we'll get to it eventually. But it's not like on the short-term roadmap yet because we prioritize data sets experiments. Then Bader asked, do you have plans to improve the data set viewing editing experience? It currently feels very spreadsheet-like with limited search capabilities and a UX that could be more intuitive. Since annotators use it heavily, searchable and filterable metadata would be a great addition. Funny enough, Marlies and I just had like an in-depth conversation with a user exactly regarding this, especially how filtering and finding items and then also filtering experiment comparison tables by these deeply nested timelines, by these deeply nested metadata items would be interesting. I think search here is something, Malise, that you might want to look into, both on data sets and then experiments. But yeah, we are investing a lot into this. Bada, you want to comment on this live? Anything that you want to add as color? Because I mean, Malise is on the call and probably would love to get that feedback. Okay. Otherwise, if you prefer not to unmute yourself, that's totally fine, as this call is recorded.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Can you repeat your question?
I was asking whether there's anything else you want to share about how currently you, especially as you mentioned that annotators use it heavily within your team, how like that larger team uses that feature and what you'd like to see, because I understand you would like to see searches in dataset items and in experiments. What do you envision?
Yeah, maybe I can share a little bit more of context. So basically, where I work, we have annotators that can check the dataset. So the dataset is generated by us, actually, by us engineers. And what we want is basically for them to review this dataset. So maybe change the status from currently being reviewed to being approved. And once we have like a golden dataset that is validated, then we can run experiments on them.
That makes sense. Malise, do you have anything that you want to comment on this, or is this just very helpful for your roadmap of data experiments?
This is helpful. I think an extension of surfacing metadata better to have more customizable workflows, for example, for an approval status or approval labels, approval name, whatever you probably want to extend, could be a good solution for this. We'll take this away. Thank you.
Awesome. Malise, maybe you want to add your email to the chat. Maybe Bada could reach out. If you have like 15 minutes to just screen share your setup, then probably having this as context as we build it would be super helpful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Awesome. Then I think there was one other question from Setare on like a timeline for V4 is going to be able to be available for self-hosted deployments. I mean, available is an interval of different things. It's available today. If you want to preview version 4, as Stefan earlier mentioned, that thread on GitHub where he informs about this, I'll quickly pop it up again. So when you go to Langfuse discussions, again, here see in the announcement channel that there is a Langfuse version 4 preview. Currently, there are a couple of carve-outs, meaning if you currently like host version 3, there's no managed migration path yet. And a couple of capabilities are currently still migrated and don't work yet on that preview. So you could like visit this thread and check whether this would affect you or whether you would still be excited to try version 4. So Stefan is already working with a couple of teams that we know that host Langfuse at large scale that currently trial that deployment model because they want to see. I mean, these metrics are just great. So getting this in like a self-hosted Langfuse deployment is amazing. But yeah, if you can wait and current performance of your current deployment is sufficient because maybe you don't run at like petabyte scale, then yeah, I'd suggest wait a bit until V4 is the main GA version, because then there will be like a more paved path, migration path of your existing data. I'd say timeline on this is difficult to exactly give you an ETA, but like Stefan and team is working on it, and we expect it to land over the next weeks and months. This year I think is easy, but like we really want to make sure that this is super easy to upgrade without any questions, because we would always prioritize stability and quality of documentation, and having tested it with all sorts of teams over rushing this out and then like getting the feedback of, hey, this is not stable. Like stability is super important, and there's so many features that depend on this. Yes, if you're interested, follow this thread, and you can. I think probably I'm just just subscribe to notifications on the thread, and then you'll be in the loop. Setare, are you interested in trialing Langfuse version 4 with these caveats, or would you wait for something that was more stable?
I think we're going to try it out and see if it's sufficient for our needs, and then we can get in touch with you if it's not. Thank you.
Yeah, if you reply to the thread, I think Stefan is also working with a couple of teams to really see how they currently self-host Langfuse open source at scale, and then also we can be more hands-on to give you some guidance or get your feedback directly to get this into the open source release. Perfect. We are at the hour. Let me check. I think there are no more questions in the chat and in the Q&A tool. There's one more. No, I've already answered this. Okay, perfect. It seems like we got through all questions. We got through all of the demos. Thanks for everyone presenting. As always, I think we'll continue to do these town halls once a quarter because it's like a great way to recap what's happened and then give everyone on YouTube also a chance to catch up with what's new at Langfuse. If you have any questions, I mean, don't wait for the next town hall. Just use the GitHub discussion channels that you already use. Everyone here from the maintainer team on the call is very active on GitHub as well. So yeah, thanks all for all of the feedback that you provide. In the end, Langfuse is where it is because of all of you and all of the feedback that we get and support. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited than to work with this community on this product. It's so cool to see so many great agents be built and be able to contribute to it. Yes, let's end this town hall and see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.